Treefort Music Fest is back. That means over 400 artists are taking over downtown Boise, Idaho for nearly a week starting March 26th through the 30th. Headliners include Sophie Tucker, Remy Wolf, Shaky Graves, Bright Eyes, Amel and the Sniffers, and so much more. 5-day GA passes start at $366, and you'll want to grab them now because prices are going up on March 1st. There's also single day or main stage only passes and a bunch of other combinations and packages, including hotel and fort badges, which can all be found at treefortmusicfest.com/tickets. That's treefortmusicfest.com/tickets. Portland does not mess around when it comes to its baked goods. A couple years back, a survey showed Portland has nearly 5,000 bakeries, which per capita ranked us second in the US for having the easiest access to a baked treat. So today on CityCast Portland, we're talking through some of our area's best bakeries. Joining me is food writer, chef, and podcast host of Food Friends, Sonia Sanford. She's sharing picks for places you need to try right now, whether you're looking for a great loaf of bread, a massive chopped sandwich, or just a fun, sweet treat. She's got you covered. It's Wednesday, February 26th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Before we get into it, I'm curious what the parameters are, like what's going to be affecting your picks. So what is your definition of a bakery?
I think bakeries encompass a lot of things. For the purposes of our conversation, I'm really thinking about bakeries that specialize in breads and baked goods like croissants and bagels, as opposed to a patisserie that would focus on sweets and, cakes and mousses and other kinds of also baked goods, but it's different than a, traditional bakery with bread.
Okay, cool. So let's just go into if I just wanted to go get a good loaf of something, where would you send me?
It's so hard to pick just one anyway. We live in a city. Portland has some of the most incredible bread of anywhere I've ever visited in the country. And there are so many wonderful bakeries. So I have to narrow it down to two. The first is Tabor Bread. Tabor Bread has an incredible country loaf. Just their standard sort of sourdough country loaf is, I think, an exceptional loaf of bread in Portland, as well as their seeded pan loaf, which is more European, denser, has all those lovely seeds on the outside and the inside of the bread. I think what they're doing is phenomenal there. They're using whole grains. They're using a lot of local grains. It's all sourdough. It's extraordinary. And the same is true with Starter Bread in St. John's, which is only open on Sunday and also does porch delivery of their bread. So that's another way to get their bread. You can subscribe to it like a bread CSA. And they're doing incredible, again, European, dense, a lot of times seedy. They're using buckwheat. They're using cornmeal. They're using all these incredible lesser known grains of bread. And for starter bread, I love that for a piece of toast with like a fish salad or avocado. For Tabor, I'm going to make a sandwich out of their bread.
Yeah, I live really close to Starter Bread. They're like a couple blocks away from me. But because they're open at such a small window that I always forget on Sundays that it has to be like that I'm walking the dog and I'm like, oh yeah, because I'll see a line forming, and I'm like, oh, that's what's going on. But yes, the couple times that I've been able to get in there when they're open, their sandwiches are so good.
And it's a two-person operation. It's run by this extraordinary couple who've been really connected to the food world here in Portland. I just love being able to support them. Tabor Bread is also woman-owned, has an incredible staff. These are just wonderful businesses to support.
Cool. What's going on with your cats? Why are they so sad?
They want to be together. They want to be in the same room with me. But if they're here, they're going to crawl all over the equipment. They're going to turn off the mic. They want to chill.
So is this cat o'clock?
This is Cat O'Clock. Actually, the cat that's talking is obsessed with bread, and that's not a lie.
Really?
She'll eat, if I left a loaf on a table or a counter, she would eat through it.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so you sent me to two places to get a good loaf of bread, but what about the best sweet offerings? I know you said not a patisserie, but I know that there's other baked goods that we could still lean on. What is your favorite shop to go when you have a sweet tooth?
And I'm going to just clue in some patisseries in this conversation for this question
Okay.
because I think it's fair. Like sweets should be done by people specializing in sweets. So again, the two places I'm going to the most often are Mio's Delectables, which is located at the Portland State University Farmers Market. She's there every Saturday. Mio makes the most extraordinary French style pastries and treats, cookies, cakes, tarts, biscuits, all these things. They have a slight Japanese edge to them too, because she herself is Japanese. It's somewhere I always take visitors because each little pastry is a work of art. The other place that I have to mention is Jinju Patisserie
Oh,
on
of
North
course.
Williams, yeah, which has those extraordinary mousse cakes, among other things.
I know Jinju just got nominated for a James Beard.
Well deserved. I mean, this is pastry at the highest level. This is sweets at the highest level. These are creamy, luxurious, glossy mousse cakes, layered cakes. This is where you want to go to treat yourself or to get a gift for someone else.
Nice. But like I was thinking like if I wanted a cookie or
Oh,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? Or like one of those
Yeah.
like sweet little cardamom rolls or whatever. Like that's a baked good, right?
Yeah, I think that Coquine has one of the best cookies in all of
Okay.
Portland. They have a cafe and they have that incredible chocolate chip cookie that comes with smoked almonds. So
Oh,
if I want just like a quick little cookie, that's where I'm headed to.
wow. They're also nominated for a James Beard,
Absolutely.
the restaurant.
The restaurant is.
Not the cookie specifically.
And I think Ken's Artisan Bread, which is another extraordinary bakery, they have lovely macarons. They have these incredible pinwheel croissants that in the flavors of passion fruit. And I think there's one in raspberry. And so that's a little bit more of a sweet treat than just a regular croissant or, they have a more variety of sweet treats at Ken's than some of the other bakeries.
I used to really like going to, is it Saint Honore Bakery?
Yeah, Saint Honore.
Yeah, Saint Honore. Yeah, they had, and I don't even know what they're called, but they're like these little puffy, pastry-ish, like brioche-ish. It's like French donut holes is like the closest thing I could talk about, but it's not a donut, and
Oh.
it's coated in small little pieces of sugar and they're so good.
Not elephant ears.
No, they come in a bag and you just get
Oh.
like X amount or whatever, and they like melt in your mouth. It's amazing.
What a great tip.
Yeah, let me actually. Choquettes.
Choquettes.
So they're like these airy pastry balls that are made with eclair dough and sprinkled with rock sugar.
I've seen them and I've never tried them, but now I have to have
No,
them.
you have to. They're so deceptively simple, but like whenever I want something, kind of a sweet treat, I'm always just like, oh, I want a choquette,
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break here, and when we return, the best bakeries for breakfast and lunch.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
Well, what about breakfast or lunch offerings alongside their baked goods? Because I feel like Portland isn't really a deli town, but we have a ton of bakeries that kind of act like delis, so what are your top 3 for breakfast or lunches?
That's such a good point that it isn't really a deli town, but we find those offerings in the bakeries. So Little Tea Bakery, which is on Division in Southeast,
Oh, yeah.
I think has one of the best breakfast sandwiches in town. They have a couple different breakfast sandwiches. The one I personally love comes with pesto and a kind of cured preserved tomato and the fluffiest scrambled eggs. I mean, I don't know how they get them so light. And it comes on a sort of ciabatta roll that's really good in terms of its crust, but very soft on the inside. I think that's an extraordinary breakfast sandwich. For also like other kinds of sandwiches, I think Dos Hermanos, which has great bread in its own right, they're doing one of the few chopped sandwiches, which is such like a New York deli thing, where all the ingredients are chopped together, all the components of a sandwich, and stuffed into a sesame seed roll. And they're starting to get a lot of attention for these because they're that good. So they have one that's called the bada bing, which is like a traditional Italian chopped sandwich. And then they also have a veggie version, which I personally love, which is get 'em to the Greek, which is full of sort of like Greek salad vibes inside a sandwich. But that sesame roll is just the perfect sandwich bread.
Nice. Yeah, our producer, Julia Fiaioni, is a big fan of the bada bing.
It's a winning sandwich. And then the last shout out I'll give, because you asked for three, is at Ken's Artisan Bakery, which I've already mentioned, but they have really good sandwiches as well. They have a Hero, which is another kind of Italian sandwich that I think is one of the best in Portland. And they also have a tuna sandwich that I think deserves attention.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, made with sacred sea tuna and lots of lemon and herbs. And they serve it on their croissants. And it is decadent and lovely and still somehow light. It's a great lunch.
It looks awesome. A lemon mint aioli on a butter croissant?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. All right. Yeah, that is decadent. Well, what about some of your unexpected favorite spots in town? Like maybe they're a little less known or they have odd hours. So people like me who live by one of the best ones are still just like, oh, yeah, starter bread.
Portland is kind of known for our pop-ups and our, underground restaurants and bakeries and people doing things out of their home kitchens. But there's a couple like very legitimate cottage style bakeries that are doing some of the best baked goods. There's Babcia Bread, and they've been doing a pop-up out of different locations, most recently out of Cloud Forest, which is a chocolate shop. They are doing some of the most delicious seasonal kinds of pastries. So they'll do a Danish with quince in the fall. They're using persimmons. I know that the baker, he goes and forages huckleberries in the summer and then makes the most delicious things with those berries. So he's always sourcing local fruit and incorporating it into his baked goods. Their croissants, their danishes, their cookies, their muffins, their scones, everything they're making is excellent. So it's worth seeing if you can catch them wherever they're popping up. The other sort of lesser known bakery that I'm really excited by locally is Sweet Clover Baking. That's run by baker Katie Gorley. That's also done strictly as a pop-up or as made to order cakes. So you can get your wedding cake from Katie, or you could get a cake for a party. But she's also doing pop-ups, so you can sign up for her newsletter again. And she's making cakes like a spelt olive oil cake.
Ooh, I love olive oil cakes. Sorry.
No, I think they're so incredible because they're so tender and rich. And she'll do things like this kind of tahini whipped cream frosting, and it's never too sweet. She also likes to incorporate local foraged fruit. She's a farmer. She's using local grains. I think it's just a very wonderful cake. And there aren't that many extraordinary cake makers. So she really stands out to me.
So these are basically just these pop-ups that are going to be hard to pin down. But if you followed their Instagram, which is what I was trying to do, is it Sweet Clover what now?
Sweet Clover Baking.
Baking. Sweet Clover Baking. Okay.
And there's one more I want to just shout out, which is Maxine's. And they're not as hard to find. They're also at the PSU Farmers Market. And the baker, Jeremy, is making wonderful bread, just loaves of bread in different varieties, all sourdough. I am obsessed with his focaccia, which he often tops with local farmer ingredients as well. So whatever's in season in the summer, that could be summer squash. In the fall, I've seen him make an extremely delicious, addictive roasted grape focaccia. So he is making beautiful baked goods too, and very, very easy to access if you go to the farmer's market.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we've gotten some recommendations for breads, for sandwiches, for sweets, and for like, try to catch them if you can. So if you had to crown a single bakery in our area, like the best bakery, which I know is so hard. It's like, someone like, what's your favorite song? You're just like, come on, man. Okay. But in your opinion, I'm doing this to you. Who would get that honor?
Yeah, it really puts me in a tight spot, but I'm going to say Tabor bread. Right now, for me, it really is Tabor bread. I think their chocolate croissant, their pain au chocolat, is one of the best I've ever had anywhere in the world. They're doing bagels on the weekends that are so flavorful with incredible schmears, like an herby schmear. There's a choice of different spreads. Their loaves of bread are my go-to for sandwiches, like I've already said. They have incredible cookies too. They have this beautiful kind of like millet topped, seedy cookie that almost tastes healthy, almost feels like you're being virtuous when you're actually indulging in a cookie. I think their range of baked goods and the quality and the customer service and the atmosphere, everything about Tabor bread is winning for me.
Nice. Okay. I haven't been, I've heard. So you're really pushing me to go. I'm going to definitely check it out.
Get the chocolate croissant, Claudia. You got to try it.
I will. I actually will. I've been looking, this is so random, but just on my feed in different social media platforms that I use, chocolate croissants have been coming up a lot. So I'm like, well, this is divine, intervention at this point. I'm being told by you to go get one. Okay. So you very recently released your debut recipe book, Braids, which includes a bunch of dishes that are a mix of Pacific Northwest and Jewish cuisine. So what is your favorite bakery in town that has like more culturally specific items that are harder to find?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like Jewish food specifically, which is what I specialize in, that's my background, and I'm really interested in how that's sort of interpreted in our region. There's two places that come to mind. One is Baker and Spice in Southwest. It's not an explicitly Jewish bakery, but they make beautiful challahs, which is an enriched sort of brioche-like dough for bread. It's an egg bread. So it's a little sweet. It's very soft and pillowy.
Ooh.
It's rich. I think they're doing one of the best versions in town. There's also Babkush, which is run by Zikra Lukin, and she's making babka, which again, very few places are making in Portland. Her babka is so decadent and buttery, and you can get cinnamon or you can get chocolate, and she plays around with flavors. And they sell her babkas at Providor. She also sells them, I think, at some farmer's market. It's another person you want to get on their list and find out where they're selling their stuff. But Providor is a reliable place. You can grab that babka, and it's extraordinary.
Oh, wow. Okay, so whenever I think of babkas, I think of that Seinfeld episode. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Where they're trying to get a chocolate babka and like someone gets the last one and they're just like, well, here's a cinnamon babka. And they're just like, that's an inferior babka. And they get really upset about it. So what do you think? Chocolate babka over cinnamon? Like, what is your favorite?
You have to say chocolate because otherwise you might get mobbed and attacked. But I do have a soft spot for cinnamon. I think they're equal. Like, I know that that's a cop-out, but I really sometimes in the mood for cinnamon babka and sometimes I'm in the mood for chocolate babka. But if I had to pick just one, chocolate, is the winner by a tiny bit.
Deep lore. When I was in college, I took some classes. Like I went to a very hippie college whose sister school was Columbia in New York. So I was able to take some classes there or whatever. And I was in a band. And so I was just kind of living there for a few months, staying in the Lower East Side. And I got a weekend job at a Hasidic bakery. And the only days that I worked were Friday and Saturday for very specific reasons. I'm not Jewish.
Yes.
And everyone there was like from Israel. like they had like a program that they would bring in workers and stuff. And it was just me by myself.
You were by yourself?
Yeah. It's the most New York thing ever. And it was just like little ladies come in and I learned it took a little bit because there's like an ancient from the 20s bread slicer that I would mangle all the bread. It took a while. Everybody was so sweet. They knew. They were just like, all right, this is how we're getting our bread today. But I learned about all of these Jewish pastries, which I never tried, and like how to say them.
Yeah.
It's a very fond memory of like me being in my early 20s in New York. So whenever I see Jewish pastries, I get really excited. I'm just like, oh, it's something that's hard to find here in Portland.
Yeah, I had a Jewish deli here in Portland for a little bit pre-pandemic, and we had rugelach and we had babka, and we often had that feedback of like, there's nowhere else to find this. So that's why I really love celebrating the places that are making it. That's why I think babkush is so exciting, and I think what Baker and Spice are doing is so wonderful. So there are definitely some of them in town.
Yeah. Well, we're totally going to link your book in our show notes, but do you have anything coming up that you want to plug for our listeners? Because I know you also do classes.
Yeah, so I teach cooking classes for groups, for companies, for team building, or for one-on-one to just help you out in the kitchen. And you can find that on my website, soniasanford.com. And I also host a podcast for home cooks to help home cooking be a little easier, to find recipes that actually work and dishes that you can actually make for dinner, for your family, for your friends, for yourself. And that's called Food Friends Home Cooking Made Easy.
Food Friends. Didn't your podcast beat another podcast recently, or did I make that up? I feel like there was a brag somewhere in there.
Really? Well, we've been doing really well. We're like one of the top 15 food podcasts in the country.
There it is. That's
yeah.
amazing in the
Thank
country. I think
you.
because I remember you telling me something, and I was like, I filed it away. Like, that's really cool, and it had to
Thank
do with your
you.
podcast. That is top 15 food podcasts in the country is amazing. So we'll also link to your podcast. Congratulations. That's so awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been really fun, and we genuinely love connecting with people and helping them out in the kitchen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing some of your favorite bakeries. It's so funny. You just said so many that I've been meaning to check out, but it's so hard when you're in St. John's, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. And also, this town, it's an embarrassment of riches. Like, we have so much good food. To narrow it down to just a few is tricky.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
Sorry again about the cat and the whole thing. But
yeah.
This is Cat O'Clock.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.